Hello everyone. So some of you might remember I mentioned that my fiance and I were getting a Saluki rescue puppy from Qatar in my last video. His name was originally Shiloh and he had been living on the streets of Doha. He was rescued and sent to a foster family who looked after him for about a month while all the details, flight, and medical stuff were being taken care of. Last week we picked him up from the Montreal airport. We've since changed his name to Shadow because he kept following me everywhere and I took to calling him my little Shadow. Shadow was close enough to Shiloh that he still answered to it, and we both thought it suited him better than his original name. Anyhow, I thought I would share some pictures with you before jumping into the video. He's settled in nicely, and although there's still a lot of work to be done, Shadow and my lab Dexter have really taken to one another. Okay, with that out of the way, our video today will be looking at a Matthew Santoro video on hauntings. Now, I don't know if Matthew really believes in ghosts, but he doesn't mention this listicle being for fun, and he seems to take the idea of haunting seriously, as do some of his fans. And almost half of all Americans believe in ghosts, and 18% of American adults believe they've been in the presence of a ghost. Also, his listicle isn't very original. You can find most of the same things listed in similar articles, so I thought this video would be a great jumping off point. Take it away, Matthew.
Here are 10 signs that you're being haunted. Number 10 are feelings of being watched. Trust your instincts, because when your gut is telling you that something's on the other side of that door that you're about to open, or that an entity is watching you from the dark corner, it might just be onto something.
Your gut feelings are notoriously unreliable. For example, Professor Colin Clifford believes that we're hardwired to believe we're being watched so that we're always prepared for danger. If so, a dark room or closed door would be prime candidates for inspiring such feelings.
Number 9 are electronic devices. Turning on and off flickering lights and interfering with radio and other signals is so common a sign of paranormal activity that it's used in almost every modern ghost story told. Spirits have been known to affect any electronics surrounding them, resulting in truly creepy occurrences ranging from a flashlight going on and off by itself to actual white noise communication through a television or radio receiver.
Billions of people have died, and you'd think that if even a small fraction of those billions were ghosts, that we'd never be able to use powered devices reliably. But honestly, power flickers, light bulb malfunctions, power shortages and outages, electronic devices malfunctioning permanently or temporarily, these things aren't the least bit mysterious. There's absolutely no good reason to believe any of this is caused by the supernatural. However, it makes perfect sense that if you're already afraid or believe in ghosts, that you might convince yourself that something like this is caused by a spirit. Humans do this sort of thing all the time. We call it confirmation bias.
Number 8 are sudden smells. If you're like most believers, when you hear a building's haunted, you imagine eerie sights or sudden, terrifying noises that scare the wits out of you. But often it isn't a visual or auditory manifestation that draws our attention to the presence of a paranormal entity, but instead a smell. Ghosts have been known to bring with them a number of scents. The spirits of fallen soldiers may be accompanied by a smell of gunpowder, or the ghost of a debutante brings with her the distinct odor of her perfume. The spirits may not be intentionally giving off the smell, but died surrounded by it and are giving it off accidentally.
Or you might be smelling actual perfume. Maybe someone walked by wearing perfume and the smell lingered. Or maybe you heard a story about the long ago battle and were told that the site was haunted and your old friend confirmation bias came to visit. It could also be something far worse, such as a brain tumor, cyst, diabetes, vitamin deficiency, or a sinus infection. It could also be, quote, triggered by temporal lobe seizures, epilepsy, or head trauma. Phantasmia is also associated with Alzheimer's and occasionally with the onset of a migraine, end quote. So yeah, there's a lot of natural explanations floating around out there that don't rely on believing in supernatural nonsense.
Number 7 are sudden temperature changes. One of the most common signs that a building is haunted is the existence of cold spots. Cold spots can be large enough to take up an entire room, or so small that a person realizes it's only there after passing all the way through it.
Heating and air conditioning companies usually have a web page explaining why your house might have cold spots. For example, you could have a blocked air vent, dirty air filter, air leaks, or you might have areas of your home that get a lot of direct sunlight, while other places might not. You could also be suffering from anxiety. Anxiety symptoms often include cold flashes, chilled sweat, and brief moments of feeling unusually cold. And feeling anxious would make sense if you're already under the impression that the room or house you're in is haunted. Again, there's absolutely no good reason to believe that it's being caused by a supernatural entity.
Number 6 are whispers or talking. Sometimes discovering your home is haunted is as easy as just being quiet for a moment and listening to a ghost speak. They might be speaking to you, to each other, or it could be their last words echoing through the afterlife.
Or you might be experiencing an auditory hallucination, something most of us have experienced at some point in our lives. However, if it persists, you should contact a mental health professional. You might also really be hearing a voice that's far away, or someone actually whispering. You could also be hearing a hiss of air, the wind outside, or any number of other things, which you might think in the moment sounds like a whisper.
Number 5 are doors opening and closing. A common sign that you're not alone in your home or apartment is the opening and closing of doors. Usually this involves finding a door wide open that you're sure that you've closed, or perhaps even locked. It can be a room's door, a closet, or even a cupboard. Exactly why a ghost would need to open something is unknown.
It's unknown because it's ridiculous. Also, I do this all the time. I'm notoriously forgetful, and I'll open a cupboard, get distracted by something, and then wonder who opened the cupboard later. Doors opening and closing can happen for a wide variety of reasons. For example, changes in temperature and humidity can warp a door. Wind can push a door open, and pressure changes in a room can cause something to open or close, seemingly by themselves.
Number 4 are objects disappearing. Has this ever happened to you? You set something down, turn to do something else, and then turn back to find that the item you just had is gone? You search all around you and can't find it, but then minutes later it's right there where you left it, as if you completely overlooked it. Is it your mind, or did the spirit haunting your home just make itself known? Items vanishing happens so commonly that it has its own scientific name. Disappearing object phenomenon, or DOP, is when something you were just using, or something that is always kept in the same place, suddenly goes missing, only to return later on.
Huh, it has its own scientific name? Let me look it up really quick. Let's see. UFO research, paranormal captivity, Xgen talks, Connecticut ghost hunter. Yeah, nope. Unless you think Alex Jones or Tinfoil Anonymous are legit scientific institutions, you're not going to find disappearing object phenomenon being seriously discussed as science. And there's so many reasons why you might misplace an object. Anyone who has lost their car keys, glasses, or cell phone know how this feels. Anyone with kids or animals could probably tell you how disappearing objects suddenly manifest in a different part of the house, and why.
Number 3 are pets acting oddly. Dogs and cats have incredible senses, so if ghosts are real and one's in your home with you, it might be a four-legged friend that catches onto its presence first. Have you ever noticed your pet moving their eyes around as if following something that you can't see yourself? How about suddenly barking or hissing at an empty corner? Or absolutely refusing to go into a certain room, only to willingly enter moments later?
I have 3 dogs and they act weird all the time. Not for 1 second do I think that they're seeing ghosts. A dog's sense of smell is between 10,000 and 100,000 times more acute than a human. They can smell things that to us may seem like nothing. We might think they're barking at an empty corner, but in reality they could be barking out of frustration or because they smell something outside and are trying to warn us. They could also be barking out of boredom. Some studies suggest that both cats and dogs see some spectrums of light that we don't. While it may seem to us that they're looking at nothing or following a phantom, they may be reacting to that light or other subtle motions that don't catch our eye. Just because you don't understand precisely why your dog or cat seems to be acting strangely, doesn't mean we should jump to believing in a supernatural explanation.
Number 2 is physical interaction. Imagine you wake up suddenly, only to find an unseen force is holding you down. Or you're descending a staircase alone, but suddenly you're being pushed down the last few steps. These scenarios might sound crazy, but they've been reported by hundreds of people around the world.
Or it could be sleep paralysis, which can be extremely scary. Or you missed a stair and gravity takes over, but it's so jarring and scary it feels like you were being pushed. Humans also don't like to admit when they're wrong or clumsy, and a ghost is a convenient excuse.
And number 1 is actually seeing a ghost. The absolute most certain sign that you're being haunted by a spirit is, obviously, if the spirit actually appears before you.
Suggestibility dramatically increases your chances of seeing or feeling a supposed ghost. Various studies have found that simply telling people that a location is haunted will increase the likelihood that they'll experience something paranormal. Environment could play a factor, such as electromagnetic fields, toxic substances, or infrasound. Or as Michael Neese explains, quote, "Some researchers have suggested that we may be biased towards perceiving ambiguous stimuli as human or human-like, because detecting other human beings in our presence has adaptive value, meaning that, from an evolutionary perspective, other people are especially important stimuli for us to notice. According to this argument, a false alarm, mistakenly perceiving a random inanimate object, perhaps momentarily, as human, is less harmful than a miss, failing to notice another actual human in one's presence. Thus, when faced with uncertainty, our perceptual systems are calibrated to be more likely than not to register an object as human." End quote. Like all the other signs you mentioned, natural explanations do a far better job of explaining them than superstitious ones. Anyhow, that's all I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care and cheers.